this is one design for an interface that I started with. It's definitely not a finished piece of artwork. I still have stuff I'd want to put in here, down there. Here's another one that's kind of started on its way. This is a more complete one. This one has stuff all over the place. This is the one I'm going to use for part of my demo at least. This is more of a video player. So this red area, that's the video screen. These things here are just decoration. They're just kind of like things that are there just for looks. That's it. Just kind of filler pieces. This is where your playlist would be. So each one of these areas here would have a title listed in there. Maybe scrolling text in like the top one, not all of them. These little tabs on the right would allow this whole piece to basically be like set inside here, and then the user could like pull it out. This over here is your play controls, so you can it has the same tab thing here you can pull out, but then this you could actually like scrub forward, scrub backwards, speed up, slow down kind of thing. These are different levels, so if you want to control the volumes or different areas of the audio, you can control all of those. And then up here is the like this is what you're currently playing is this. And if I open up my layers, let me turn this off. This here is just the play thing that would just advance, okay? So again, that's just another design. Here's another piece that just like is a separate piece altogether. Here's another one. Here's just a meter. And then here's a more complete piece. Okay. This is more of like a random thing. Like there's no specific design for what it is. But inside here I have a bunch of different things that can animate. These little pie chart things can rotate around. These little bars down here would move up and down. This thing at the bottom, like this ruler, would slide left and right. These circles in the middle can rotate. These things over here can also rotate. And then the rest of this is really just like pretty stuff. So how I start this off is I go into a new document, 960 by 540. Make sure this is right because sometimes people get that wrong, and then you start off wrong, and then everything else just kind of trickles in. I'm going to hide my transparency grid so I don't see that. And then you just start drawing of what you think your stuff is going to be. I find it helpful to start off with a basic shape of what you want the overall look to be, and then go from there as to what the entire thing will kind of fill in. So usually I'll start with my pen tool. If it helps you, throw some guides down, use your grid, whatever you want to do with that. But I'll literally just start clicking and holding shift and just see what comes out of this. I don't like to have roundness here, so I'll undo that and just click. And I'm literally not even really thinking about what I'm doing here. I'm just like, maybe I'll put this here, maybe I'll put that there. And then Illustrator is great because you have all these like cool guides. Now, this is not going to go straight. I didn't line this up perfectly. This is where my 45 is at, is right here. So I'm going to put my 45 there, and then I'm going to cut these so they line up perfect. So I'll use my scissor tool and just say cut. And then cut. Come on. Let me get rid of that. And then I'll just put this point right on top of this one, and then I will Control J to join those together. There we go. Okay. So there's the start of like one of my designs. And then I'll go through and just start filling stuff in. Boom, there's another spot. Here's something. There's something else. And literally this is all I do, is I just kind of go through and just kind of fill in what I want this thing to look like. You want to vary your line weight. You want to vary the dark areas. You want to vary the light areas. So in some of these, you want to take this stroke weight up, like considerably. Like that's 5. That's a good number there. Some of these you may want to take them down. That's 0.5. Some areas you may want to be just completely black. So let's say I flip this around, get rid of the stroke. Maybe here too, I'll just make that black also. There we go. Down here, this might be a good spot to have like a playlist. Let's go a little bit further. All right, so that'll be my playlist area here. I'm going to duplicate this over. And I'm just going to drag in some different boxes I could use for my playlist. So, like that. I'll copy it and then Control D to duplicate that upwards. Looks almost even. It's good enough, right? And then I can just take this and hit divide. If I did that right. I didn't, did I? There you go. And now each one of these is a separate piece. Boom, boom. Now what you want to do is initially we're just kind of thinking about what is going to go where, okay? I'm not typically too concerned about different colors at this point. I'm mainly concerned with just being able to get in the shapes. As long as I get the shapes, I get the line weights, I can come back and adjust my colors at any point. This is not something that we're going to need to go into After Effects and like rebuild everything. We're going to use our build from Illustrator. There we go. So if I don't like those reds, I can come back and adjust what those reds are going to look like. But if I don't like where this is at, obviously that's a no-go. Some things that are typically kind of neat to put in here is just like half lines. So if you just did like that, oops, and not filled it in. There we go, just get rid of that. Right, so you see how I have just like this half line there. That's kind of like a interesting piece to have on your artwork. Same thing here. These ones I want to be a little more muted, so I'll take these down to 0.1. I'll put a little screen in the middle here. Oops. There we go. So there's my screen. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. That. There's my play bar. Again, make that a little bit thinner. There's a little bar that's going to go across to let us know it's being played. If you want to create concentric shapes, let's say I create a circle. I'm just going to do this off to the side. I can move things over like this. Typically, I'll do one of these shapes, so this doesn't need a fill. I'm just going to copy it and then Control-Shift-V it, and that pastes it in place, and then you can scale it down like that, okay? And then I can do that again, and then scale that down, and then do that again, and then scale that down. So now I have these concentric circles. Again, varying the line weight, so maybe some of these are thicker, some of these are thinner. And then maybe that one is actually just filled in totally. There we go, something like that. I could also take this whole shape, and then that's obviously one design is on that side. On this side, I can start breaking up some of this stuff. If I don't want the same weight across the entire thing, typically I'll use my scissor and I'll just like cut randomly. And I'd like to say that there's some kind of like method to this, but it's just literally like cutting stuff, what's going to look good, what's not going to look good, and then going from there. Okay, so I cut this up, and I'm just going to start deleting pieces. This piece. So I'm basically keeping a piece, deleting a piece, keeping a piece, deleting a piece, keeping a piece. I don't want to delete that one because then it'll be too much space, so I'll get rid of this. There we go. So I've just deleted those pieces. I could also vary the weights of each individual piece if I want. So they're not all going to be the same. Same thing on here. I could cut this up. And then I can just grab individual pieces and change their specific weight. And you'll see how very easily you can create some interesting looking stuff just by doing this kind of thing. Okay, that definitely looks more interesting than just having it like that, especially if we think about if this thing is going to be rotating. The one on the right rotating, you won't see it rotating. It's very difficult to see any movement this way. The one on the left, you'll see the movement because it has things that would define it as it's rotating around. For instance, I rotate this, you can't see it's rotating. I go to this one and rotate it. You can see how it does definitely rotate around. Okay. Don't forget After Effects has other tools as well, like if I click on, or Illustrator, if I click on stroke, I can go to dashed lines. I can give this a thick weight. I can change my gaps and dashes and create, again, just some interesting looking pieces. That's all you're kind of doing, is making it look interesting, making it look high tech. And that's for any line, any piece of artwork that we would have going around here, that's what we would be able to create. Other things you may want to do. Let me grab this. Actually, I don't like that one. Let me create a rectangle. So let's say I have a rectangle like this. I can just grab this corner here and pull it in, and that will round it. If I go to the properties for it, which are here, I go to stroke. No, I go to, where was that? Corners, there it is, corners. I can make these actual corners like this, and boom, that saves me a lot of time. So you can do stuff very simple. Oops. Especially if you grab two corners at the same time. Come on, just undo that. So if I grab this one and that one and drag them in, no. This one and that one, there we go. And then I go to, that's a cool shape already, but then if I go to that corners and make them harsh, then I get this shape. Then I can grab these corners and just pull that down to make that a little bit bigger. That's cool. And then I'm just going to add in some lines here like this. Okay, typically 45s are good to have inside your design, 45 degrees, because it just makes everything kind of look pieced together better. Come on, bigger, there we go. So things like this where I'm just duplicating this stroke and then kind of lining up where I want that to be inside the shape. Further down, come on. Seems close enough. Maybe a little bit thicker. There we go. I'm going to outline the strokes. So path, outline stroke. I'm going to shift click this shape, and then I'm going to go to Shift M, which is my shape builder tool. And if I hold Alt and just drag straight down, that gets rid of that. If I hold Alt and drag straight down here, that gets rid of those. And so now I have this really cool pattern inside of this, and then I can take this piece, give this maybe a little bit thicker stroke there. That looks cool. Maybe I'll also go to, this is a little bit more advanced stuff. If you don't remember from Illustrator class, you can look it up. But under the appearance, you could add like strokes on top of your shape. So if I go to another stroke here, I make this just to see it blue. And then I go to this stroke and I say I want to offset the stroke. Yes. Preview too far the other way. I want to go -10. Yeah, that should work. And then now I'm going to make this white. And I need to make sure that this shape does not have a fill. That's what's doing it. And then this whole thing has to be on top. There we go. And so now I have basically just like a trim that's going around it. So I have my one stroke out here that's black, another stroke that's white, and then it's just like that. Okay. Same thing if I were doing like a meter. I would just draw the meter out, draw in some lines here. this should be black there. Take this down. Well, why does it have 2 strokes on it? Just delete this other stroke. There we go. That might need a little bit more like that. Okay. And then just Control D. There we go for this side. Let's bring it in. And then scoot it over there. There we go. So now I have some kind of meter on top of this, okay? Now, part of what we're designing obviously is interface, but all these things have to be animated, or a lot of things have to be animated inside here. The idea is that we will have some sort of 3D happening inside this as well. So all of these things that we're doing are meant to be animated or meant to be created. So as you're creating these pieces, that's what you want to think about. Here is this animation. No, this. There it is. Let's turn motion blur off so we don't get that. Hide all this stuff. I guess I don't have motion blur on, it's just him that's motion blurred. All right, let's take our resolution down to 1/4 so we can actually see stuff happening faster. All right, I guess this is the best view to see this in. All right. So he initially wipes this thing in, and then he's going to lay it down. You won't have this robot guy. Yours is just going to move. But all the things on here are currently moving around. There's like little dials. This thing is moving. I'll show that in a second. But just so you can see how he's going to be able to grab pieces of this. There's his hand touching this piece. And then sliding it over. And then grabbing another piece of this and sliding it over. And then he's going to hit it and then pull them up. Apparently in this file I only have the green one coming up. All right, so let's look at it from way back here. Come on. So there he slides it over, slides it over. And you can see on here, the bars right here are moving. And then when I go into the actual hologram items, here we go. You can see how I have some of these other things also moving on here too. Here's a little Death Star type thing spinning around. Here are these bars kind of moving up and down. I think I had these kind of flickering on. Yes, there we go. And then this thing at the bottom just slides left and right. And then I think that's all I had in that one. And then this one is just more of these pieces kind of put together. So as you're doing this, you're building this bigger thing, but you're also kind of looking at how else could I animate, or what else could I animate inside here. This one, winter. So here are just some random things you may want animated. So here's just some, turn motion blur off so we can see that faster. I'll go over how I did these later once we have some artwork inside of our scene. But here's just some random things kind of spinning. This could be like a loader or something that's moving inside of our screen. Here are, scrolling text, there we go. here's a bunch of different ways that we can display different pieces of text. And again, I'll turn motion blur off so it goes faster. That's still going to go slow. This is a randomly positioned triangle. Each one of these edges and points is kind of moving around independently, and these X and Y are actually the start X and Y position of one of these points. This 5 is actually being read off of this. The higher that bar goes, the bigger that number is going to get. Maybe if I just scrub, it'll go faster. Let me turn this off. It is off. There we go. So you can kind of see that kind of generating up, and then this changes up higher. Let me turn off maybe some of the stuff that may be going a little bit too much, like that may be causing it, and this might be causing it to go slow. Yeah, that's definitely better. This is a piece of horizontally scrolling text. This is a piece of vertically scrolling text. If you had code or something on there, you want it to look kind of high tech and have this like bits and pieces of code moving around. I did that there. And if I zoom in on this piece of text, you can actually see that the letters and stuff are actually changing inside of it as it's moving up. So it's not just like sliding up, it's actually like kind of changing as it goes to, again, give it this kind of technological appeal to it. Here are some different sliders, and these are all being controlled differently. Some are animated by keyframes, some are animated by expressions, some are animated by plugins. Here is that UI kind of put together. Ignore the screen here. This is just a placeholder for now. All right, so that's all the animation that's on there currently. So you see these things kind of pull out and they rotate. So it's not just like a 2D thing. This is a 3D thing. If I go into my UI here, and I rotate this, you can see how I can actually rotate this around in a somewhat 3D format. Now it's flat, so if I spin around, you'll see that it's just paper thin. But the idea here is that it looks like it's 3D. It looks like we have some sort of 3D-ness to it, okay? Each one of these pieces is broken into a separate area. Here is my playlist. Here is the round dial. Here is the main area. And then here are my levels. Okay, so as you're building yours, that's stuff to think about is how you want all these pieces to animate. Like I said, some of these pieces are just for looks. A lot of the stuff here is just for looks. It's just stuff that's laid on top to make it look fancy. It has no actual purpose. It's just for fanciness. This will eventually rotate. I'll have this round dial. This round dial will turn around. As I layered my stuff in Illustrator, I was very aware of what is going to be moving together so that those things are grouped on a layer all by themselves so that I can move that all by itself. This round dial is on one layer. This dial background, which is this thing here, is on another layer. This control tab is on another layer. On my levels, this background is on one layer, my levels are on another layer, and my levels tab is on another layer. Okay? Now, if there's something like these level tabs that you want to do, think about what it's going to look like. On these, the vision of this is that I will have basically something like this for each one of those. I'll have a background color, I'll have my fill color, which is going to be, let's say, blue or something, and then I'll have these lines that are going inside there. Each one of those things have to be layered so that I can animate them all separately. So that as these things move up and down, I'm not affecting the actual background color of this. I'm simply animating a fill that's layered inside of it. What I mean by that is this is one element of this. This is my outside box. These are my lines. I would have another layer here that's, let's say, my background color. And just for easiness, we'll go in with this like grayish. I really hate this RGB slider. There we go. No, this, yes. There we go. All right, so there's the background color of this. So I move that to the back. I get rid of this extra stroke on the outside of this because I don't need that. Do I have that? Where's that coming from? It is coming from that. Yep, there it is. And then I would also have another layer that would, let's say, be green, and that's going to be my my level. There it is. And so this is what I would actually be animating going up and down like that, right? Now, if I have a bunch of these like I do inside of my levels area, in Illustrator, yes, lay out all of them so you can see what they look like, but you're only going to need one that you would set up, and then we can duplicate that one and put those in place, okay? And that's true for everything that you see that's going to be like a similar type thing. On the stuff here, if I had 50 of these round dials that all look the same, I can make that one work, and then duplicate that in all those places without having to manually animate each one of those, okay? So just be aware of stuff like that too as you're working, that yes, you may have these all on one layer, but eventually you'll have them all separated so that they all can animate separately. I may want one slider to be up, one slider to be down, or I may want to animate the sliders moving up and down. As I animate this hologram, let's say that I wanted to have a video playing in it, and then one of the sliders slides and then the saturation goes down, or one of the sliders goes up and the audio gets louder. I can tie those things in together as well. So think about your end product. Think about what you want your end piece to look like in the context of what we have here. You will have some sort of interface. It will be 3D. You will have stuff animated on it. You will have compositions inside compositions inside compositions. You will play with some expression writing. Outside of that, it really is open to what you want to do. Okay, this is a really cool, fun assignment. This is where we really start getting into, you're really creating an entire piece that could be going out into bigger and better things, into bigger assignments. And this is stuff, again, that you see across pretty much every movie nowadays, especially Marvel movies, with these things. So, once you're done with your text thing, jump into Illustrator or start on a piece of paper and start sketching this out. Eventually, you'll have to get into Illustrator to draw it. Like I said, I like to draw my stuff in Illustrator because I find it easier to be able to do this on a piece of paper. I have a harder time doing that, okay? Your end result should be something, close this. Should be something like that size, okay? Where you have on one 960 by 540, this is the design of my stuff. That doesn't mean you can't have other things that would pop out. That doesn't mean you can't have other things that you would create also. But at a minimum, that's what you would have. If I wanted other stuff, let's say I click the button and something else pops up, I can make another 960 by 540 document, have that so that when the button gets clicked, another piece of video or another piece of something would pop up, and that could happen. Each one of these pieces here could have been a separate document altogether, but I found it easier to tie everything together in one document. That way everything flows and matches correctly. Cool. Questions on that yet? No. Okay.